and welcome back to Cooking Club, the Independent Chef. So today we're going to be making something that is a total comfort food. So what's something that you really like to eat when maybe you're feeling a little under the weather? I like to eat chicken noodle soup. We're also going to make some homemade crackers today. So your staple ingredients in chicken noodle soup are obviously chicken and noodles. And we've got some broth, and we've got some veggies. So I've already pre-cooked our chicken. I did that, and then I kind of shredded it so it's ready to go. Usually in soup, you're going to pre-cook your meats. That way you can just add it, and you don't have to worry about it cooking thoroughly while you're making the soup. And as for noodles, so I bought some egg noodles. So they're just kind of a smaller, bite-sized twirly noodle. You can use any kind of pasta really, as long as they're kind of smaller and bite-sized. That's the way to be. Also, we have our broth. So I have also kind of pre-done the broth. So I used the kind of chicken bouillon cubes. So basically you just need to boil your water, plop them in there, and make sure they fully dissolve. But your broth you can get in many other ways as well. So you can also get it in a concentrated form, which you also add to hot water. You can also buy it in cartons. So it's just a liquid in a carton and it's ready to use. And you can also make your own. So homemade probably tastes the best, but it is a bit of a task as it takes quite a few hours to do. And usually you make a big pot, so you kind of have to have enough freezer space to store it all as well. So sometimes buying cubes or other things, it's just way more convenient. The cubes are probably going to be the cheapest because you just get the small amount, you add the water yourself, and the liquid form is going to be the most expensive because you're buying about 900 milliliters at a time, and it's already pre-mixed with the water, so you gotta pay to get as much liquid as you actually need. And then we've got our veggies. So today in our soup we're going to do some onions, some carrots, and some celery. So we are going to show you kind of how to chop up some of these veggies. So they all need to be prepared. I've prepared some, but the rest need to be prepared before we get going. So let's get chopping. So we're going to start with our carrot and our celery. And we need to wash these. And so before we actually do that, we're going to make sure that our hands are washed, that your hair's up, you got your apron on, no long sleeves, things like that. So I'm going to wash my hands and then we'll wash our veggies. Alright, so you want to wash your veggies to get off any dirt or any bacteria that might be on there. So running it under cold water and giving it a scrub with your hands, or if you even do have a veggie brush, you can use that as well. But just water is good enough. You don't need any sort of special soap or cleansers or anything like that. So let's wash our veggies. All right, so we're going to start with our carrots. So we are going to peel that carrot. So you want to get just kind of that top outer layer off. So the best way to do that is just a nice veggie peeler. So I'm just going to put it on the table so that you can see, but you just kind of gently go down, get off that top layer. Switch that carrot around so you can get the other side. And you don't have to take off the outside, but it's just kind of common practice. All right. So now for our carrot, we want it chopped. So when chopping carrots, or even just preparing carrots at all, you want to get rid of that little top end, so you're going to cut that off. And I usually cut off just a tiny bit at the end. Sometimes it might be squishy. You don't really want that, but you don't need to take off much. And now we're gonna cut our carrot in half, because obviously this end is a lot skinnier than that end. So we're gonna actually cut that carrot into pieces. So when we chop just kind of means roughly just want bite-sized pieces. And you want to try to keep them uniform so that they cook through at the same time. So thicker pieces are going to take longer to cook than thinner pieces. So we'll try to keep the same thinness throughout. You can do like I'm doing, hold those carrots in place, move your knife. I'm not a professional cutter, so I'm definitely not as quick or as good as those crazy people you might see that can just bam, 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 it's all done. Alright, almost there. Watch your fingers, don't want to chop anything off. Excellent, so those look pretty great. So I'm going to add them to the rest of my carrots here. Alright, next we've got our celery. So celery, very similar. You're going to cut off the top and the bottom. So as you can see here, usually you kind of cut off this whole thing. So you're going to cut right down here. Alright, so we're going to cut off that top part, cut off that bottom. And again, the same, we're going to just chop our celery, slice our celery. Those all basically mean kind of the same thing, bite-sized pieces. And again, you want them to be pretty much the same thickness so that they cook at the same time. Alright. Excellent. We're going to add that to the rest of my celery. So these veggies are all fairly cheap to purchase. Carrots kind of go by the pound, $1.25 a pound is a pretty good price. Celery you can buy as kind of the whole thing, or you can buy individual stalks. The whole thing, about $2.50 a bunch, is pretty average. Alright, so next is our onion. So, I know there's a lot of people that don't like onions. I'm one of them. I'm not a big fan. But I've really come to appreciate the flavor that onions actually bring to dishes. So what I do now is I just cut the onion really small so that I can't actually differentiate pieces in whatever dish that I'm making, so that it tastes good, and then I can just kind of pretend that they're not there. So onions can kind of be a bit annoying to cut. If you've ever cut one, you'll know that your eyes kind of start to hurt. So they release a chemical that irritates your eyes, and then your eyes start to water to try to flush out that irritant. So obviously it's very irritating when you're trying to cook with them. So I have a great fix. Swim goggles. They are so great. I use them all the time. Protects my eyes because you really, I bawl. You don't want to see that. So with onions, we don't need to wash them because we're going to take out this kind of outer layer, and I'm going to show you how to chop them. But I'm going to put my goggles on. All right, excellent. So we've got our onions, so we're going to try to get that outer layer off. So kind of cut it off a bit at the end there. That way you can start peeling those outer layers off. See, I can already smell it. It's already coming. Oh, this onion does not want to lose its skin. Nope. All right, we're going to try to cut a little bit more off. So it can be quite a challenge working with these things. Oh boy. All right, slowly come. Here we go. All right. So I'm even going to take off one more layer here, because this layer tends to kind of not cut very well and doesn't taste great, so just kind of peel that off. All right, so we want to keep this root intact because it's going to help us cut. So we're not going to use a whole onion today. So I'm going to cut right through the root into the onion. All right, let's clean up our board a little. Okay. So with our onion, to get some really nice, easy cuts in it, what you're going to do is, the root is on this end, so cutting kind of towards the root, you're going to make some thin slices into the onion. Don't cut all the way through though. So make a nice thin cuts there, all the way across. Make sure you watch your thumbs. All right, and then you can do one kind of cut through the middle, part way through. Okay, not all the way. And now you're just gonna. So we had a little technical difficulty. The onion wafted to the camera and it had to shut its eyes. So we'll keep going. So we cut some small slices into the onion, kind of towards the root. We did one through the middle. So now we're just going to chop at the top and we're going to get some beautiful small pieces of onion. Alright, that's good enough. So see, you get the pieces and then they all just break apart because of the rings of the onion, and you get lovely small pieces of onion. So when a recipe calls for just an onion, usually, I'm going to take these off, hold on. So usually they are just referring to yellow onion. It can be interchanged with white onions, but there's also red onions and green onions, and even shallots, which are kind of like a small version of an onion. Red onions are used for kind of different things. Often they're eaten raw because they are milder in flavor. And green onions look totally different than other onions, and they're tall, skinny things. And again, they can be eaten raw, used for different things. But when using just onions, yellow or white, or sometimes they're called sweet onions, those are great. All right, so we've got enough onion that we are ready to go with our soup. So we are going to get cooking. All right, now we're going to get going with our soup. So you're going to need a pot that is big enough to fit your soup. I cut the recipe in half because I don't need a giant pot of soup, so I'm doing a smaller pot today. So take your pot, put it on the burner. You're going to put it on medium heat. You're going to take some butter. I've got, it's supposed to be about 2 teaspoons. I just kind of cut a piece off. So we're going to throw that in our pot, let it melt. And once that's melted, you're going to add your celery and your onion. And you're going to let it cook until tender, which will be about 5 minutes. All right, so it's been about 5 minutes. Our onions or celery are nice and tender, getting nice and warm. All right, so now we are going to add everything else. So add in your carrots, mix those in. We've got our kind of shredded chicken, add that in there. And we're going to add in our broth. So our recipe actually called for veggie and chicken broth, but I'm just going to use chicken today just for keeping it simple. There's also pork broth, beef, seafood, and lots of like specialty broths. Oh, beautiful. Now all that sizzling is just gone. All right. We're going to add in our noodles. Make sure they're in the liquid. And then we're going to add some seasoning. So we're going to add a little salt, just to taste, so just a little sprinkle. You usually don't need too much salt. We're going to add some pepper, again, just a nice little sprinkle. Woo! That was a big sprinkle. And we're going to add some basil and oregano. So we're just going to add about 1/4 teaspoon of each. So I've got my 1/4 teaspoon. Sprinkle it in there. You can use fresh herbs if you want to. I find dried herbs are just a little easier. Again, I've got 1/4 teaspoon of oregano. Sprinkle that in. Give it a stir. And then we're going to turn our heat all the way up to high, and we're going to bring it to a boil. So once it's at a boil, we're going to turn it down. So I'm going to pop the lid on there to hopefully help bring it up to a boil a little bit faster. All right, now our soup is boiling. So we're going to turn it all the way down to low. Leave the lid on, and we're going to let it sit here and simmer for 20 minutes. So while that's cooking, we're going to make some homemade crackers. So we're just going to use some pita bread and some spices and some oil. So what we're going to do, you're going to take out some pita bread. So we'll do 2. And you're going to cut each pita into 8. So cut it in half, cut it in half again. This is a good time to use your fractions. And then you're going to turn it and you're going to cut it in the middle again. It doesn't want to stay together. There we go. Alright, these are going to be our little crackers. This one. So you can also use these as chips for like hummus or other dips. Really, it's very versatile. All right. So we're going to spread them out on a foil-lined baking sheet. And we've got our oven already preheating to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. All right. Oh, God, even more I got it. Let's see. There we go. All right, so next we're going to do some seasoning. So I used basil, pepper, garlic salt, and parsley. So I used a 1/4 teaspoon of everything except the garlic salt. For that I did 1/2 teaspoon. Okay, so I've got all of that in my lovely little bowl here. You're going to take some olive oil and you're going to add a 1/4 cup of olive oil. Into that mixture. There we go. Give that a stir. Make sure everything's nice and mixed. All right. Then you can brush it on to your triangles. We don't have a brush, so I'm going to use a spoon. I'm just going to spoon a little bit on there and try to spread it around. All right, so we finished covering all of our lovely triangles with some olive oil. So now we're going to pop them in the oven for about 7 minutes, but make sure to keep an eye on them as they can burn quickly. You want them to be crispy and lightly brown. All right, our chips are ready, and so is our soup. We'll take out our crackers. They are very nice and brown. And we'll turn off our soup. Bring our soup over. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. All right, let's dish up some soup. And we'll take a lovely cracker. Smells great. Nope, too hot to eat. But there's our soup and our homemade crackers.